Hey guys, so I'm Zhen. Today I'll be doing part one of a four-part tutorial on Rhino, right? And the four-part tutorial is essentially going to sort of somewhat be in line with what you guys are doing for ARC 100 and what like your submissions are going to be. And so I'm trying to like keep you guys keep up with you guys in terms of that, so that you guys are ready for whatever the next assignment is. And so for the first assignment, given that a lot of you guys are new to Rhino, it's gonna be literally like you don't know anything. I'm gonna assume you know literally nothing, and then we're gonna start from the beginning. If you guys have questions or whatever, afterwards you can always like shoot them in the Discord chat, in the alt Discord chat, or yeah, I'm not sure actually, but I'm sure like Sadi will give you guys information on where you guys can ask questions. So yeah, assuming you guys know nothing, Rhino is basically just a 3D modeling software. Some of your tutorials maybe have asked you to use AutoCAD, but we're gonna use Rhino because next semester, if you guys have ARC 180, which is like computational design, I'm not sure what the course name is, but you're going to be using Rhino in ARC 180. And so it's important that you guys have sort of like a foundation for it now before you go into next semester. Otherwise, you're going to be like, what is this, right? So yeah, to get started with Rhino, here are your 4 viewports, and there's a command bar up here where you can import command like, line, point, whatever it is. And ooh, that was really loud. So to maximize a viewport, you basically just double click on it. So you double click on top, we're gonna do that, and it maximizes the viewport. You can double click it again to minimize the viewport. And if you input commands, like let's say if we do a line and you press space, it'll repeat the previous command, right? And if you press escape during a command, you cancel it. So that's like the basics of stuff. For selection, you can click on something. If you shift click on something, it adds it to the current selection. If you control click on it, it removes it from the current selection. You can also do this with the box. So like if you drag a box while holding shift, it'll select whatever's in the box and add it to your current selection. And the same with control, right? Let's go through constraints. So Rhino has a bunch of constraints built in to help you basically draw better. So I'm going to turn all of them off for now. We're going to start with the first one, grid snap. So they're all at the bottom down here. And grid snap basically it makes it so that your cursor or wherever you draw from snaps to a point on the grid. So you see that it's only going to snap to grid squares. That's basically it. It's pretty simple. Ortho restricts the cursor to multiples of an angle. So if I draw a line now with ortho turned on, it snaps to 45 degrees, right? If the ortho turned off, it's just like kind of freeballing. And you can edit the angle it snaps to. If you right click on ortho, you can do set ortho angle, and that's like the multiple of the angle that you want to snap to. Planar, I'll switch to I'll do this actually. So planar is interesting. Planar, I'll demonstrate with boxes. So if I were to draw a box, right? So if from the top view I were to draw a line, right? Oh, I have to turn on. Okay, so if I were to draw a line from the corner of the box, you can see in the perspective viewport with planar turned on, the line is always planar to the XY plane, right? If I would have planar turned off and I were to do the same thing, you see that line suddenly drops to where the plane is. And that's basically it. Planar just keeps constraints your drawing to like a single plane. And then O snap. So O snap is like pretty much the most used of the constraints that you're going to use. And we'll go through. So O snap is basically all of these object snaps over here. It's basically like what part of the object your cursor is going to snap to. So I'm just gonna delete, oh no, I'm just gonna delete this. So if let's say I'm drawing lines and just turn off all of these. Okay, so with end is just like from end to end, right? The end of the line to the end of another line, right? That one's pretty basic. Near, for the love of God, don't use near. Just don't. It's just like, why would you use near? It's inaccurate, basically. Like, you know, you're snapping to a point near the object, but whether it's actually touching the object or not is kind of like, it's kind of in question. So I don't think it's really good practice to use near. Point is pretty self-explanatory. You snap to point objects. So if I were to draw a line, like, you know, you snap from point to point, right? Mid is also pretty self-explanatory. It snaps to the middle of like lines and like the middle of like, yeah, basically the middle of lines. In the middle of like other objects too. Like if you have a box, it'll snap to like the middle of one of the lines on the box. Center usually applies only for circles. So like if I were to snap to center here, like if I were to just have center on and try to draw a point, it would draw it in the center of the circle. It'll snap like right to the center of the circle, right? That's pretty, yeah. It's pretty simple that way. Int is intersection. So if I were to draw a line, I can basically like sort of like find like where it intersects, and it'll connect them. Well, not really connect them, but it'll touch, which is important in making accurate drawings. What I'm also doing here is I'm holding shift. So like when I want to draw a line and I want to constrain it, shift is basically like a shortcut for turning ortho on and off. So like you see ortho's off here. If I hold shift, ortho turns on, and then I can restrain my drawing. So that's really useful. Perp is perpendicular, right? So if I were to draw lines, like you'll find the perpendicular point. It also works on like curves, I believe. Like if I were to draw a curve, how does it work on curves? I know there's like some weird thing. I'm not sure actually. There's a certain way to make it work on curves, but I don't remember. Tangent works for curves, right? If you guys remember high school math, you just basically find the tangent to the point that's tangent on the curve or on the circle. So yeah. Quad also is I think specific to circles. So I'm gonna move the circle over here. So quad is just the I can't type right now. Quad is just the quadrants, right? The 4 quadrants on the circle. And then there's knot and there's vertex, which we're not going to get into because they're not very relevant to what we're doing in 2D drawing. But I'm sure you'll counter them like later on. That's OSNAP. Oh my god, my laundry's done. So that's basically OSNAP. There's also Smart Track. And what Smart Track is that, I'm just going to turn my OSNAPs back on here. Okay, that should be good. So what Smart Track is that it's basically sort of like a drawing. It like helps you draw essentially. So let's say if I wanted to finish this triangle, right? If I wanted to finish this triangle, or no, that's a bad example. If I wanted to draw, I want to have this point over here connect to the middle point between the end of this line and the end of this line, right? So if you imagine there's a line here, I want to draw this to the middle here, but I'm like lazy and like I don't actually want to draw that line. Smart Track basically helps you in that if I were to type line, right, I can hover over this end here and you see how it turns white? Suddenly there's a point there. If you hover over a point for like just a little bit, Smart Track sort of registers that as like a Smart Track like point, and then you can use those points to essentially like draw lines between them. So suddenly like I can connect, essentially these two lines are like, you know, connected, and I can draw from the middle of the line between these 2 points to this point over here. I don't know if I explained that very well. But basically, like you can hover over points with Smart Track, and then you can sort of draw lines from, those points, or like you can find like intersections from these points, like these two lines here, like projecting lines intersect at a 45-degree at a 90-degree angle over here, and then you can like draw from this point, right? Which is like pretty cool. It helps like speed up your drawing. Sometimes it's a little bit annoying. You can also delete or add Smart Track points. Like if you hover over it, it appears. If you hover over it again, it disappears. Or if you can also, like, if it's like, you can press Control to turn the point on and off. Yeah, that's basically Smart Track. The last one is Gumball. So Gumball is just like super useful. Gumball is basically this thing, right? This interface. And what it does is that, it'd be better to show you with the box. Wow, that's kind of an odd box. So Gumball basically allows you to move objects in the 3 axes. It allows you to rotate the object in the 3 axes, and it allows you to scale the object in all 3 axes as well, right? And that's basically the use of Gumball. With Gumball, you can also click to move it, like certain number of units. So like if I were to click on the green arrow here, and I want to move in the y-axis, I want to move it like 50 units. Yeah, you just click and then input the number. You can also input negative numbers, and you can do that for rotate. You can do that for scale. You can also hold Alt. If you hold Alt and you click on it, and you were to input a number, it duplicates the selection. Or like if you hold Alt and you like drag it, it'll duplicate the selection, right? You can also just copy paste it, whatever you fancy. Let's see, what else should we go through? Smart Track, Gumball. Basically in Rhino, like the best advice I can give you is just like whatever command you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to do in Rhino, just like whatever you think it's called, it probably just exists like already. It's straightforward like that. And if it doesn't exist, then Google it. Yeah, because usually like whatever you're trying to find like already exists. Like if you wanted to mirror something, like you would just type like mirror, and the command just already exists, right? And then you can just mirror something. So like most stuff exists already. If you don't know if it exists or not, just try to type it out and see if like the autofill, like look at the autofill like sort of selections, and then like maybe you can find it there, or look through sort of like the different tabs and the tools and see if you can like find it there. Yeah, let's go through like a couple of the basic ones for 2D drawing. Right, so the one we'll be using this whole time is line. It's pretty yeah, that's it. it's line. There's also polyline, which allows you to draw essentially like collections of lines, as long as you keep clicking and then you press space or like enter to end like your drawing of your polyline. Curve, you can use this to draw curves. You basically place like control points, and Rhino builds a NURBS curve based on these control points. And if you click on the curve, right, if you click on a curve and you press like F10, wait, no, sorry, I pressed F9, F10, right? So if you press F10, it turns on the control points, so you can see the points. I think you can also type like points on. Right, you can also type like points off to turn it off. And if you do that, you can actually select the individual control points and shift those to adjust your curve. Right, and that's good for curves basically. You can also do another way of making curves is interp curve, which is interpolate curve is what it stands for. The difference being that the interpolated curve is it actually touches the points. It actually touches like it's sort of like control, like the points that you're specifying. Yeah, these curves are actually like super mathematical, and you'll get into them sort of like next next semester when Brady Peters teaches you about like NURBS and like curves and like degrees and stuff, but that's not really important right now. There's also arc, which is really, arc is just a part of a circle, yeah. And then there's also just circle, right? These are pretty basic. Polyline, circle. Yeah, I think those are most of the basic means to draw lines. And then there's also ways to sort of edit these lines. So some of the curve or like line editing commands, one of them is trim. So if I were to use this as an example and draw another line, trim allows me to basically choose the object to cut with, my cutting object, and then I trim stuff off with it. Like, yeah, I'll just delete that end of the curve, or I'll delete that end of the curve, you know? Like, trim, and I can just like, you know, whatever's on this side gets cut off. It's pretty, yeah, it's pretty useful. Another one is split. So let's say I want this curve to, I choose which curve to split, and then I choose which like object to split it with. So you can pick another curve, and then this curve, see here, gets split into 2 pieces, right? There's also, oh yeah, F10 and F11 also work for this. Like points on and points off also work for these. So you can actually turn on points on like straight lines and extend those. Another way is to do extend, which actually just allows you to, yeah, literally extend the curve by clicking on it. That's pretty self-explanatory. Explode is another one. So let's say if you have like a jagged line like this, like a polyline like this, you're gonna do explode. Oh, oops. What did I type? Explode. And it explodes it into individual line segments, right? It doesn't work for single line segments like these because there's nothing to explode it into. One warning with explode is that like if you get used to typing explode with just EX, sometimes you get exit. So be careful and save your work. Because sometimes like I did things really fast. So I type exit and I just like click no for some reason. I just don't save it. And then, you know, it's really sad. So yeah, just be careful of that. What's next? Join. So join is pretty simple as well. You have 2 different curve segments or line segments, and you select them both and press join, and now they're one curve. Yeah. And then what's some basic other ones? Rotate. You can rotate stuff with like gumball, like with the gumball. You can also type rotate, and then you choose the center of rotation. You choose like the first reference point, and then you rotate it to the second reference point. You know, or you type like an angle, right? And it'll rotate it by the angle. There's also the 3 scaling options. So there's scale. Here I'll show with a box is probably better, but you can use it on curves as well. So draw a box, right? So scale. There's scale 1D, which is scale 1 dimension. You choose a base point, you choose a first reference point, and then you scale in 1 dimension only. And then there's scale 2D, which allows you to scale in 2 dimensions, which is the XY. Usually it's the XY axis or the XY plane. So you're scaling in 2 dimensions here. And then there's just scale. It's not scale 3D, it's just scale. Where you choose your base point, and then, you know, it scales in 3 dimensions. What else? There's mirror, yeah, which I think, I'm not sure if I've shown, but that allows you to basically mirror an object across like a plane. Maybe it's easier to see in top view, like, you know, let's say I've got this weird wavy curve. And do mirror, right? You can mirror it, like, the line is the plane that I'm mirroring it across, and then you can just mirror it. So this is really useful, like if you're drawing, like for this example, if you're drawing like a certain piece of furniture and it's symmetrical, you can actually just draw half of it and then mirror that half across to get like your whole thing. Yeah, those are pretty much the basic commands. which will allow you to just do like most 2D drawings. The next part of the tutorial, I'll teach you about how to. Well, I'll just do a drawing, and then yeah, that's basically it. Okay, thank you for watching.